period?
Okay, for a start, since this is an SME, of course, getting a startup, particularly in the hardware field, especially in Kenya, to be specific, it's really quite hard. Like, let's even talk just before even COVID hit. First of all, the hardware world is considered very expensive, which is actually true, and that's why you will not get most innovations in hardware. So again, you will find it that some of the innovations that I've had to put under production are not exactly at a friendly cost. Because you see, if we're producing at, say, 100,000 shillings, we cannot sell it at the same price to the customer. Now, this actually brings in a lot of problems, especially when we reach the market stage. So having the production of most of the things, rather in my innovation, I actually import a lot of things, but slowly as we keep on, exponentially growing, we start realizing that we can actually partner with a couple of fabrication labs, and maybe some manufacturers in the industrial area. So actually, when we were even starting in the first place, we produced our lockers at I think around 75,000 shillings. That's Kenyan shillings, so we are talking of around $750. That was really, really expensive. No one would actually buy our lockers at that price. But then once we started scaling, the price will reduce to up to around 15,000 shillings. So that's like $150. And we are still working on reducing this price. This is still high, much as we have reduced this by almost six. We have reduced it by almost 6 times. But then the price is still high and the market is still not willing to buy the lockers at that price. So I think we should partner with the local manufacturers to like understand that some SMEs, or rather some new upcoming companies, and basically new coming companies that are hardware based, really need to get a way in which they can work with you producers, or rather manufacturers in Kenya, to produce readily available goods for the products. So you can imagine if these were the problems we were facing before COVID. And then when COVID now hit, then everything was now paralyzed. So it has been quite really hard. We have to keep on going in there and asking them like, okay, now what's the roadmap from here on? And now the working hours have been reduced. Movement has been confined into certain places. So there's just been a lot of problems with manufacturing since COVID hit. But one way or another, we started realizing that we needed to create solutions around COVID, because it looked like it is really stay for quite a while.
Thank you very much, Prince. That is very nice. It is important to note that we are now live on NTV, courtesy of Konza Technopolis, and a lot of Kenyans and people around the world are watching this conversation. Thank you. I will go to Sherry, and I would like to ask Sherry to give us an overview. I know it was in your presentation, but I would like to get again the global landscape of makers across fab labs and maker spaces regarding local manufacturing. Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at sort of the maker movement and the fab lab movement and sort of the innovation, over the years, these innovation hubs, we have literally thousands, probably on the order of 8 to 10,000 spaces around the world, distributed around the world, that share the same tools and processes. They share some of these digital manufacturing tools and processes, right? They can design digitally, they can actually control and manufacture at a small scale machines and or products, right? And so we have this kind of accidental or serendipitous network now, distributed network that we can leverage to do manufacturing, that we can leverage to do innovation. And so COVID actually really gave us our first opportunity to kind of show what we can do. We've been talking about this for a very long time, about the fact, oh, we have this distributed manufacturing infrastructure, but we haven't really proved it, right? We never really proved that we could do it. And during COVID, we did, right? Millions and millions. I think one of the most recent data points is about 40 million products, PPE products, have been produced in fab labs and maker spaces and hacker spaces around the world, right? Just in this time frame, which is extraordinary. And it really points to a community resilience. Now, Prince, you were talking about the fact, I thought this was very interesting. You were talking about the fact that, there's this trade-off between, innovating new hardware and then having to scale it up to a level where it's actually affordable on the market for your consumers. And I think we're at a really interesting inflection point myself. Before it's been just scale, and it's been about centralized manufacturing, centralized supply chains, right? And then what we saw during COVID was a failure of those centralized supply chains and those centralized manufacturing processes. And so in a way, I think the trade-off has been is really between cost now of the creating and the manufacturing and the sustainability, meaning the sustainability both of you as the entrepreneur, but also of the environment, right? Because that's becoming really important. We're getting to the point now that we're destroying our environment with all of our growth, et cetera. So we kind of have an opportunity here with COVID to kind of reset, right? We can reset that. We can reset. Is it really the cost that's most important to us? Is it really the sustainability that's most important? And they're different. They're a little bit different, and point to potentially a new way forward. I feel what you're saying because it's so true. I mean, the entrepreneurs at MIT have the same problem. They make a great product and they can't manufacture it locally. They've got to go off China where they can do it really cheaply, right? And that doesn't seem fair, because that economic opportunity should stay at home, and it should stay at home with the small and medium-sized enterprises, right? And the entrepreneurs. And so it's I don't know what you guys, I think it's a very interesting moment in time where we have the chance to kind of reset what our goals and our priorities are, and reset it in a way that is advantageous to us locally. We have this global infrastructure. We have local industry. Can we not do this in a way that supports that better, right? Rather than going to China, for instance.
Well, thanks. Any addition?
Sherry, yeah, I actually agree with that. I mean, if within the few years that I've been innovating up to where I am right now, I can actually agree that there has been very tremendous amount of growth, especially with the fabrication systems. I mean, initially we used to export things. At some point, we'll even have to I don't know, send some designs to China, have them 3D printed and imported back. But right now, as time moves on, we've just been having Fab Lab now is here. So I think with time we could actually get to that point where we can now produce all these things locally. But yet it's just a step-by-step thing. But and then I think also the government policies also has to step in, though that's quite a tall order, especially for young entrepreneurs. But yeah, we are working on ways on reducing the costs. And
all right, thank you so much. Now, Mr. Ejash, most parts of Kenya and of course the world is experiencing the second spike of coronavirus. How is your organization supporting the the manufacturers, like especially the local manufacturers, in remaining afloat?
Basically, CAM has been supporting through pushing the government for
Noise here.
hello. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, basically, CAM has been supporting all the manufacturers trying to lobby on trying to ensure that the policies are sustainable, because manufacturing is quite technical and heavy investments. So basically, we need to push the government to give us more subsidies in terms of tax, cushion up in terms of regulatory functions, So a lot CAM does in terms of advocacy, right? And so far it's done really, really well. Basically, the government also needs to cushion up all manufacturing, right? And it is part of the agenda for the government.
How adverse did coronavirus affect the manufacturers or members of your association?
Sorry, how? Please repeat.
How did the pandemic affect the manufacturing ecosystem?
Okay, it did affect quite a bit, because a lot of turnovers of the manufacturers went down, right? A lot of industries actually came to a standstill. People like timber, stationery, furniture, leather, footwear, a lot of them actually came to a standstill because of the pandemic. On the contrary, a lot of other industries did quite well in terms of turnovers, like paper, chemical and allied, metal, food and beverage. They also did quite well. So it's both ways. Some were affected, some were good.
Okay. I want to assume that when Sherry is Fab Labs and I can call them desktop manufacturing or the small cottage industries. I'm trying to think of a situation where the small industries are able to build products to be consumed by the larger industries to produce the other final products. Is there a way that the two industries can work together?
Yes, 100%. Because a lot of products which we actually import from outside, if they can be done locally, why not support them? In fact, CAM actually advocates to ensure that the local manufacturers are protected in terms of trying to put in more taxes at the port, so that the local manufacturers are actually able to sustain themselves, right? If you look at example,
Okay.
let's look at
Now,
if you import sugar, it's quite cheap, but there's a lot of tax on sugar, so that the local industry can survive. Like that, as an example.
thank you. Now,
I was just going to say, Martin. I was going to say, I think there's a nice way that they can work together. I mean, these are innovation spaces, and as we saw during COVID, there are a few. There were a few, actually not a few. There were more than a few examples of the lab sort of making an innovation or making a product, and then trying to scale it a little bit, just to be sure that it was manufacturable, right? And then taking it to a local SME, a small or medium-sized enterprise, and having them scale it up, as Prince was talking about, right, to the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands scale. And that's a really nice relationship that developed during COVID, but I think would be tremendously beneficial going forward, to look at as a model for cooperation and collaboration, right? Because it benefits both organizations as well as the community, right?
Right. Again, Sherry, this one is I'm bringing a fight right at your doorstep. How does Fab Foundation incentivizes the innovators and startups, especially in developed countries, to make sure that more local production can be done?
That's a very good question. How do we incentivize it? I think you are already incentivized, honestly. but I think we try to support it in several ways. I think one is trying to find seed funding. Like sort of through the Fab Academy, we encourage the innovations and then try to help them find their path to production, right? And that would be through finding funding sources, but also what are your local partners that you can who you can partner with, et cetera, right? But incentivizing it. The other thing that we're trying to do is talk to large scale aid organizations, right? Like the Kenyan Red Cross, or not Kenyan Red Cross, but the Red Cross, the International Red Cross, or some of these large organizations like Palladium that do sort of nationwide provision of aid, and encouraging them to go to fab labs and maker spaces and invest in these sorts of spaces, these innovation spaces, such that they can do the innovation, they can do the supply, they can create the supply chain, in essence, and the manufacturing chain locally, and at the same time build up their own sort of development, their own economic opportunity, at the same time that they're kind of insuring against future crises like this pandemic that we're going through. And so we use different ways like that to incentivize, though we're not a direct sort of seed funder of that. What we do try to do is pull the network towards opportunities like that, such that they can so they can innovate and create economic opportunity.
Wow. And me to question to Prince. Prince, I would like you to tell us how you have managed to use partnerships and able to get supports for your production or moving from an innovation to production.
I think I'll also be really honest with you. Right now, like I had mentioned earlier, the hardware space in Kenya now is really quite capital intensive. So most guys are usually going for software companies. But then you see, especially in Africa, let's talk of Africa in general. Africa, if you look at Africa, most people are not tech savvy. So and if they are, then they are not exactly into the software field. So most people would actually use services that are based from hardware. I mean, even before the software is there has to be hardware. So right now we'll also be very particular. Since this entire innovation journey for me started, I've had one partner come in from they're called Africa Stocking. It's actually where my company is incubated at the moment. But then at the same time, I've also sourced for other partners for other projects. So we have guys coming in for the smart farming. So we are working with greenhouse owners. We have done deployments with them, and then but then during this COVID period, a lot of people are usually very scared into investing their money into a business that they're not sure has been established. So it's quite a problem even establishing partnerships. So most of the partnerships that I already have are partnerships that were already established before COVID hit. So for the lockers, we are having Ashut engineers in industrial area. They are producing the lockers for us, much as we have still not yet settled at the flat rate production. So we are still producing the lockers a bit high. And then at the same time, also producing these hardwares for the products, I mean, like the smart farming digital system. We are just bootstrapping everything. We are just investing everything on our own. We do not have the machines to fabricate the casings for us. So that means we have to go down there, get a few plastics from within the within the town area or industrial area. We come and cut them manually, and that is really labor intensive, and of course it takes a lot of time. So you can imagine if I have clients who I have to supply, like say 10 gadgets, it could take me say a whole week. So a job that could possibly take me like, let's say, a day if I had somebody producing this for me. So partnerships at the moment is just on the very low, and it has affected my business in a very negative way. But we are finding ways of working around that.
All right, thank you. I want to take all of you back. I don't know how best Mr. Jayesh will also handle this. We have, because we are also taking questions at the same time, we have somebody called Soita Justus Juma, and this is what she wants to know. Talk more about 3D printing, additive manufacturing, and CNC. How deeply established technologies in Kenya? So probably Sherry will give us globally and any information she has about Africa. Then Prince will give us what he knows about it in Kenya. And Patel will also tell us if such technologies in his ecosystem are currently embraced.
Thank you. What a nice question. Yes, 3D printing is becoming, certainly in the United States, and in Europe, I think it's becoming a predominant industry, and so it's very, very important that we're able to both learn the sort of design for and how we manufacture it, and also very important that we start to figure out what kinds of materials we can use that are sustainable. Materials has always been kind of the stopping point, right? For 3D printing, but we're starting to get over that. We're starting to have very different kinds of materials, metals, etc., that are really, really going to take us to a new place. And so I see the growth of 3D printing as being very, very important. CNC right now is very, very important, right? And it's something that is really across Africa, I see, growing across Africa. And I think 3D printing as well, but you guys have the local knowledge, I don't. CNC has been important up to this point, and I think it will continue to be important, but I think 3D printing is really where we're going.
Prince?
Okay, so like I had mentioned earlier, of course, 3D printing is the process of designing 3D images and actually, fabricating them by simply melting a material to form the actual stuff. In the Kenyan space, 3D printing has actually been on the very high rise in terms of use. We have people setting up 3D printers. I mean, I also have mine. Initially, before that, I was using one from FabLab Winam, that is with the help from Martin. I also know some guys in industrial area doing it called what's the name? Gearbox. Yeah, we have Gearbox who also do it, and then we have even Innovators building their own 3D printers. If you guys have heard of Peter Mbiria, you can search him on Facebook. He has built a very powerful 4-nozzle 3D printer from scratch. This is really amazing. So that actually means that people are getting to know what 3D printing is, and the same also applies to CNC. I mean, just the same people mentioned, FabLab Winam and Gearbox, among others. I've seen a lot of people actually working with CNCs even in town. People are getting the Perspex cut. People are getting wood cut. I mean, FabLab is now producing, FabLab Winam is now producing clocks that are CNC cut. And yeah, so basically that clearly shows that the African people, rather especially in the Kenyan market, people are getting popular. People are getting this thing outside there. People are getting know how to use this. And I think that is a very good indicator that and that is a very good indicator that this thing is actually getting outside there. And so people like Martin, I repeat, people like Gearbox, they're already training people on how to use these machines. And people are, once they're trained, they start bringing in their own machines. And then from there, it's just a matter of making either, I don't know, expanding the use of these machines locally.
Wow, thank you. Patel, you have that question, then you will have the second question from another listener.
Okay. About the 3D printing, I hear the technology is coming up in Kenya, though I don't have much data on it because we haven't gone into depth about it. But I hear that a lot of things, progress has started on the 3D printing. So honestly, I do not have much data on it. So I do not want to comment much.
Well, the 3D printing is already here. It's not that it's even growing. People are already having it. I can count almost 10 people here in Kenya who already have 3D printers.
Sure, yes.
So,
we hear about it. That's what I just said. Hear about it. So I'm not deep into it. So I don't want to put any word into only one.
But you guys bring up a really interesting kind of point or idea, and that is that we are still, I would say, internationally, right? We're still kind of retooling ourselves for the 20th century economy and for the 20th century work, right? Which is not necessarily all digital, right? But it's what we have to do. We have to start tooling ourselves with these digital technologies, and we have to start teaching our youth and or retraining our workforce to work in this digital economy, because as Prince says, 3D printing is here, and if we don't get on board, we're going to get left behind. So I think that there's something really some careful negotiation that we have to do, both at the policy level and at sort of the practical application, in business level, to train and tool for that new economy that's coming at us very quickly.
Yeah, Mr. Patel, you have another question from Catherine Soy, who is doing wood production, furniture production using wood, and she's asking how to partner with you because you are a manufacturer of a raw material, which is what she uses mostly.
Sure, we can support you in basically supplying you the cushions, the foam sheets, and all that. Whatever she needs for the sofa sets. Please write. I can support you there. Okay. in Kenya, as you just said, Catherine has just said it, there are many small people who are coming up, and CAM is actually looking for such people to link them up with the manufacturer so that they can get support. So that's what also we are trying to look for. So basically, CAM's job will be to link them up. So whoever the new startups are, please link them up to us. Believe me, we will be there.
Okay. So pallets can link up with Terraform to get that partnership. Now,
Martin,
for somebody.
That's my
sorry.
Don't
kill me. Don't kill me.
It's fine.
Yes. So sorry, you should know that he is an MD of Jumbo Form, not Terraform. Yeah.
In Rabur, I have.
Yeah. So you are based in Rabur. So thank you so much. We are almost reaching to the end, and I just want to make a statement regarding what Mr. Patel said, that he has very little information regarding the 3D printing, and currently, as Sherry and Prince were saying, this is coming up as a 21st century skill, and it is coming strongly towards manufacturing. So there is that serious need for the two levels of manufacturing to embrace each other and see how best whatever is done in maker spaces, in fab labs, can easily fit into the larger manufacturing. How best the maker spaces can can print, let's say, spare parts for the larger machines that you have, and things like that. So let me now I just want to ask a question about the new normal. In all your spaces, Prince, in your space, how are you handling the new normal? Patel, how is the new normal with manufacturing, both as individual, as your company, and as the chairman of CAM, and also in the LREB, because you are also holding a position in the LREB. How is the people handling the new normal in terms of economy and manufacturing? Sherry, globally, how are people embracing the new normal? Because currently we can say, and I can proudly say, that this particular event, the Lake Basin Innovation Investment Week, is the only national event which has happened this year. Normally we have 3 events. One has been happening in Nairobi, and one has been happening in the coastal area, but this year they were not able to happen due to coronavirus. But Lake Basin Innovation Week has quickly embraced the new normal to make sure that we can do this. So, question to you.
Wow. Well, that's a tough question, because we're in the middle of it. Are you going to answer? You go first, Prince. I'll answer after you.
Okay. So how am I coping with the new normal? Well, basically, even from like I mentioned, we're incubated at a company called Africa's Talking. But you see, since I'm actually the only hardware company that is incubated here. Most of, or rather all of them, usually just deal with software. So, but then you see, with hardware, you have to be there. You have to be physical there. You have to always report to the office just to make sure that you've tested, and before you deploy, all your parameters are up and running, and syncing with each other. But then the new normal, COVID has affected this so greatly, since even we are not even encouraged to report at the office. We are told to majorly work from the house, and this is quite really difficult. So you see, we still have to interact with the common artisan. We call them juakali. And then I still have to go into industrial area just to monitor how my lockers are being produced, how my gadgets are. I still have to bring in things from China. So there's still that contact, but then at the same time, it's kind of a risk at the same time, because it's not exactly putting in a confined position. And then market-wise, customer-wise, people are trying to avoid using hardware products. So that means that everybody is either just trying to, remain within a space where they're not interacting with anything physical. And this has greatly affected most of my innovations, which are, of course, you have to interact with them. So, I mean, like the lockers, they're placed in very public places. You have to come in and key in a password, book your locker space, your duration, blah, blah, blah. So you see, you have to keep on interacting with that kind of an interface. So unless we have a system that can actually, try and maintain the entire situation, which we do not have at the moment, we are either exposing ourselves to COVID risk, or we are exposing our customers to this.
Prince, you'll have to build a robot to go and do monitoring for you.
Well, we'll look into that.
Okay, Sherry?
Thank you.
Oh, yes, the new normal. We don't really know what the new normal is quite yet, right? What we're seeing around the world, though, and certainly what we're experiencing in the United States, is that everything that can happen remotely is happening remotely, like this, right? So conferences, meetings, everything is happening online. Manufacturing and or innovation is either happening in a hybrid environment, so it's partially sort of online collaboration and partially in person, with a lot of social distancing going on, right? Everything in a manufacturing site is being cleaned, right? And sterilized. And you really are trying to keep the number of people very, very low in order to do, just basically what needs to be done. And what the other thing that we're seeing that's very interesting is the kind of like what you were talking about earlier, Prince, the idea that everybody has their own machine at home, whether it's for education, whether it's for manufacturing PPE or innovating. It's like people are either making their own machines at home, or they're buying like sort of cheap machines that'll allow them to prototype at home, right? Which is really interesting. I think in Barcelona they made our Fab Academy program too. You couldn't really go into the lab while everybody was shut down. And what they did is they created a machine that they call a 6-pack. It's as large as a 6-pack. That's it. And you can tool it to be a 3D printer or a milling machine, right? And it costs like $100 or €100, I think. And so they started taking part of everybody's tuition and just buying these kits, sending them home to all of their students, and their students are at home now. They've built their own machines and they're 3D printing and or doing milling at home. And so we're seeing a lot of innovation and or education happening in that environment. And then scaling that, taking what they've done on that little machine, taking it into their fab lab or makerspace or whatever to kind of upscale it, right? And so, we don't exactly know what this new world is going to bring, but we think the new normal is a hybrid, right? It's a hybrid between what we're doing right now and sort of in-person, hands-on manufacturing and innovation.
Patel?
A lot of it, Sherry and Charles have said it, but let me add a few more things. The new normal is basically just thinking that everything is okay, and in the next few days you get to know that you're COVID positive. That's the new normal. Because if you see the country today, basically everybody is behaving like there's nothing happening. Whereas people are supposed to be understanding that there is COVID and it is real, right? If you look at people in the markets and walking around in the streets, some don't even have masks and they don't even care about it. So they feel everything is okay, which is not true. They must realize that COVID is for real. Despite the fact that many people have died in the whole country, people still behave like this. So people have to really, really get serious about it, because they need to protect themselves and even others, right? So the new real is basically accepting and moving on, because I don't see the new vaccine coming in soon, though US is saying that they got something, which I'm not sure. So let me not comment. And
Sherry will tell us.
And it might take up to next year, maybe July, August, before it actually comes to Kenya or the world. And by the time it gets tested in other countries and people start getting back to normal, so you're talking about 1 year from today. So we can't keep the economy closed, right? We have to move on. So everybody has to work. So we have to work with the norms of the guidelines which the country has given us. Social distancing, the mask, right? So we have to move on with all that in mind, right? When in March it started, we saw jobs going down. Last 1 or 2 months, we've seen employment increasing, because people are now accepting that we have to move on, and that is good. But all everybody has to do right now is to be safe. Be home, office, be safe. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patel, you are so right.
And straight to the point.
Yeah, straight, blunt.
Now, personally, I was one of the innovators which came up during the wake of the COVID-19, where we developed a contact tracing mobile application currently called M-Safari. And I can tell that taking an innovation to the market is a very long journey. I want to ask all of us, what are some of the policy challenges that makes it so difficult for young people or young innovators to bring their innovations to the market? Because you can be able to build your product, yes, but what are some of these barriers which makes it so difficult for you to deploy that particular innovation?
I think I should go first. Okay. I think I will talk majorly in regards to what I've been experiencing, and I will tell you bare and square and open. The hardware business is one of the toughest in the local space. I have talked to so many innovators who tell me, Charles, help me get my product out there. I know of so many innovators. I mean, I was even talking to some kid who invented some stuff that is a smart home automated system. He has been working on a system, on a belt that you put on a kid, so that when a kid walks out of your compound, it sends you an alarm. But then you see all these innovations are just dying because there are certain guidelines that have been put that are not favoring these innovations getting outside the market. So one of them is the cost of the taxes that are imposed. I mean, for us, we design our motherboards locally. We test them, or maybe we do what is called etching. I think Martin and Sherry, you know what that is, or etching, or we even do what we call milling. So we test them here first, and then once we have confirmed that those motherboards are working, is when we can actually take them to China. But then when they come back, you find that we could be importing motherboards worth 5,000 shillings, but then we are paying tax worth 7,000 shillings. So you see, the tax thing is still on the very high end. And at the same time, even when I produce my stuff from industrial area, there has to be, that they call it the VAT. And then when you're also selling, there's also some sort of a tax you have to pay. So you end up selling your product almost up to even 10 times. And this is really scaring away the target market. So the policies for me, mostly I will just go for the taxes. And then you see when you, for instance, let's say we make lockers, right? And then with our lockers, you have to communicate to the internet protocol. So you have to send messages to your customers like, hey, you have stored your stuff here, and this is your password. But then, even within that space, for you to even get to that level of communicating to your customers, you have to again get another certification, I don't know, from Communication Authority of Kenya, which costs a huge amount of money. So by the time you're actually selling your product, or rather your service, to your customers, the price will almost be 10 times. And I have seen this happen. And so it's either on our end to either, just cut down extremely on the prices and count our losses maybe at some point. But yeah, I think the government should actually listen keenly on these upcoming innovations, specifically the upcoming innovations. And small businesses, agri-tech businesses, technological businesses, security businesses, smart homes, etc.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I mean, I see that George here has an interesting question about economic policies. What is the policy for importing foreign goods? Do foreign goods have an advantage over local goods?
Okay, most of the things that we import are things that we cannot produce locally. So we have to get them from outside. So if we want like a motherboard, we cannot fabricate an industrial grade motherboard locally. So we have to import this from China. But then importing it from China is not where the cost is. Or rather, this is not where we incur a lot of costs. The cost is usually on the duty side. So when they get here, your motherboard could take even 3 weeks to actually get clearance. They could literally take 3 days from China to the port, but then they take 3 weeks from port to you, simply because they have to pass through, handling and whatever, and so many things. So, but then I was really glad when I partnered with Ashut Ashut really helped me, because initially I was also planning to import lockers, but then it's been a constant iteration system where we've been redesigning every day to actually realize the final product, how it looks like. So for some of the things that we can produce here, we're already utilizing the opportunities we have here. Well, they're still not cheap. I mean, the same locker that I produce at around 16,000 shillings, that's $160. I could get from China at around, say, $80. So it's still not exactly where it should be, but at least it's moving somewhere.
So, Mr. Patel, that question again comes to you. Is imported goods more cheaper than locally made, and what could be the challenge? You are on mute.
Sorry. We can't say that they are cheaper, depending on the item. You see, because there are many items that are cheaper and many are expensive. And that is the reason why CAM advocates for the manufacturers to get rebates, or basically waivers on the tax, so that they are supported, right? So, and then that is the basic thing, basically, because when everything is going to be imported and you don't have any local manufacturer, then obviously the government will want to make some money from it, right? But when you have industries running in the country that need support, then for sure they'll make it expensive for anyone to import from China or elsewhere. I hope I answered your question.
Sherry, you want?
Martin, 1 second. If I take example of Charles partnering with Ashut, that is exactly what our startups and the small SMEs are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be looking at who they can link to locally, so that they get support. You see, like just now how Catherine said that she manufactures sofa sets, and she wants to get some deal with us. So once she comes to us, obviously there will be something better, other than just going like a normal customer. So similarly, also all SMEs, whoever line they are in, if they actually contact us, maybe me as the chair, I can link them up with the relevant industries and get them support. Maybe even if a price discount can be given, there's still money. There's still support, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. You want to say something, Prince?
Yes, Mr. Patel.
Yes.
Let me, I think now that you've been in that business for quite a while and you actually understand how innovators, or rather we are trying to, add on what you already know about the local space and how the kind of hardships local innovators go through. I think one of the other things that we should also be looking at is how do they also invest, leave alone partnering. I mean, I'm me partnering with Ashut, it's producing the lockers, of which I still pay for. But then how do I get, that kind of a financial system, or rather financial support? Because that is one of the things that innovators in the local space lack right now, especially during COVID. So I don't know, finances are always a problem to upcoming innovations. So maybe things like if somebody has an interest of it, like that lady who just said she has an interest in partnering with you, maybe you could actually look into does she even have like a good setup system for the furnitures?
Yeah.
Or maybe if there is somebody else producing, I don't know, say something, let's just say somebody is producing maybe automatic hand washing machine outside there, how can you support them within your industry? I think that is the most important thing. How do you support those innovations within the space you're already in, you as an established manufacturer?
So Prince, you can just add your final remarks because time is up. So you have just 2 minutes to do your final remarks as we are ending.
Okay, so I think right now, as it is, we cannot actually say that we do not have innovations. Innovations are everywhere now. There's innovations everywhere, and Africans are really waiting to see these solutions up there. Innovators are getting new ideas everywhere of solving solutions. The only problem is they need help, they need mentoring, and they need to be taught, or rather to be told, how to get these products outside there, how to market them, and also get that insight from a well-established kind of a business setup. And it's up to the key players, guys in the manufacturing industry, leading entrepreneurs, just encourage these young innovators to at least move steps within their innovations. Thank you.
Thank you, Patel.
Yes, basically what maybe first I'll answer what Charles said. For sure, a local industry cannot finance a startup or maybe an SME. The banks do so, but by partnering, I would mean that, say, Ashut can buy your locus completely. So your investment is less, but you have a ready sale done, something like that. So there are so many ways to partner around. So I think that is another topic which needs to be discussed separately. Maybe you can liaise with me one-on-one, and we can take it up from there. The government actually needs to give a budget in their budget, which they remove every year, like how US has the R&D budget, and that's where they give to students to actually innovate and support them with finance, right? To do the R&D, the research, basically. So Kenya needs to actually have a budget in place so that they can support the Kenyans, like Charles, so that they can bring all the new innovations which they have in mind. I think that's the only way forward. And any small startups and SMEs that need support, please liaise with us as CAM. We will surely try our best to do what it takes to support you. Thank you.
We'll make a follow-up. Thank you.
I'm available 24/7.
I agree.
Well, I guess I would say that I feel like the distributed manufacturing sort of model is here to stay. It's going to be part of the new normal, right? And that a lot of innovation comes out of these really small spaces, right? These sort of cottage industries, and that the partnership between them and the sort of small and medium-sized enterprises is really where we need to be investing as countries, as regions, as states. And I would say that the way that we need to do that is, as I think Prince was saying, we need to mentor, right? We need mentors. We need people to mentor our entrepreneurs and teach, and educate our youth towards innovation, right? Towards technical innovation, both hardware and software. But I think at a national level or a regional level, we need sort of innovation pipelines, just like we need supply chains and manufacturing pipelines. We need innovation pipelines, right? And that means investing money as Patel said, at the government level. They need to invest money. They need to invest resources. They also need to put a policy environment in place, right? So that environment would be not only to encourage, sort of giving tax breaks and or certification type breaks, different kinds of opportunities to new entrepreneurs and businesses that are getting started, but also, for creating this innovation environment. In the state of Kerala, India, they have an organization called the Kerala Startup Mission, which sounds like it might be posed sort of similarly to what you do, Patel. But it's literally to educate, to stimulate innovation in IT as well as hardware innovation, and that invests in in spaces where people can make things, in incubators where they can not only mentor people but also fund people into business, so to speak, into operational businesses, and then and to really focus on, in every way, how can you encourage local versus global production, right? how can we, how can you put in place the policy environment, the monetary environment, the incentives to really, really support prints, for example, right? And entrepreneurs across the world. And so I think those are we have to think strategically, but I do think that the future is local. It's not global. And we really, really have to be investing in that way.
Thank you very much. The future is local. Oh, you have something else? Just 1 minute, because it's going to go off. You are off.
Sorry. Okay, currently also the Kenya government is actually giving incentives and tax holidays for the investments in manufacturing. So that is already there. I think it is just that you need to link up and get into it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. The future is local and not global, because we are advocating for global designing and local manufacturing. Corona has shown us that if you have more people making locally, then you are in a good space. I want to say that we as enablers have been able to link up together and make things work. For example, in Africa currently, actually on 26th and 27th, we'll be having a global, we will be having Africa Makerspaces gathering taking place to see what makers are doing here and there and how it can be taken to the next level. And I also want to appreciate everyone who has attended. I want to appreciate Prince and Pike Limited for coming here to have the discussion that we've had. Mr. Jayesh Patel, thank you so much for your representation, and you know how it has been. We thank you so much. I want to thank Sherry so much. I think we met with Sherry first in 2016, and that is why she's referring to me as an old friend. It has been very nice, and thank you everyone for coming. I want to thank the LBIU fraternity, the Secretariat, and Lake Hub, FabLab Winam, and Winam Capital for making this a reality. Thanks a lot to Konza Technopolis for the support to make this happen. Thank you everyone for attending, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye. Great. Bye.